Good evening and welcome to the February 11th board meeting of the Ames Community School District Board of Directors. I'll entertain approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Perez, seconded by Rosser. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Director Colton, will you please read our purpose statement?
The Ames Community School District commits to equity and access that empowers every individual to reach their full personal and educational potential.
Thank you very much. I will go ahead and read our statement regarding our public comment, which follows each of our discussion items as well as our public forum. Residents of the district, students attending the district, parents or guardians of students attending the district, and district staff members may address the board about any topic relevant to the district, whether on the current agenda or not. Those who wish to speak must sign up at the beginning of the meeting. Speaker participation is limited to 3 minutes once per item. The views and opinions of citizens addressing the board do not necessarily reflect those of the board, district administration, or staff. Speakers are to remember that Iowa law prohibits the board from discussing specific employees, students, or their performance. Student speakers will state their name and school. Others will state their name and address. And our first discussion item this evening is our 2019-20 district calendar, and we have our middle school and high school principals here.
Good evening. So tonight, Spence and I will talk briefly about some proposals that we have in regards to professional development, and then I think Spence will briefly talk about the modified block schedule for the Ames High School. So tonight we're proposing to the board to rethink how we utilize our professional development time for next school year. Our current structure is that we meet every Wednesday morning. At the middle school it's from 8, and technically it's supposed to go to 9:30 a.m. And at the high school it's from 7:50 to 9:15 a.m. The proposal that we're seeking tonight is to move to a full-day hybrid approach, 5 full-day PDs and 3 partial-day PDs for next school year. And we'll talk a little bit about the thinking behind that. The first thing we want to do is talk about why our current structure is not conducive to professional development. So I'll start with the middle school. Even though we're scheduled to go from 8 to 9:30, our buses and our students start to arrive much closer to the beginning of the regular school day. So we have students still arriving at 7:30 in the morning. Our buses are starting to roll in at about 9 o'clock. And so once you see, if you're in the media center, you start to see the buses roll in, our teachers start to shift their thinking about how to prepare for instruction for the day. And so we're typically ending our professional development around 9:10 so that we can begin supervision in the building and then also begin for instruction. So we're losing some professional development time as opposed to the elementary model where they have all the students who leave and then they don't have to kind of think about who's coming in next or moving along. The other piece of it is that once the momentum starts going for our professional development, we have to sometimes abruptly end the conversation. So we never really get a chance to go in depth with the information that we're learning about. And that causes some frustration. And oftentimes it's inefficient because we're picking up at that next following week, having to kind of rehash what we talked about the week prior, and then trying to build momentum again. So we never really get deep with our conversations. This year, I know I just started, it hasn't been quite 30 days, but I was thinking about, how do we leverage some of the expertise across the country and getting some experts in our building. And so this Wednesday, we have an opportunity to hear from Dr. Cook, but as you know, we have to adjust our current calendar or current time frame to be able to have him have enough time to work with the staff. Well, if I'm thinking about bringing in a national expert, I'm not going to bring them in for an hour of professional development. It just doesn't make sense. So we want to be able to leverage that when we have that opportunity. One of the things that Spence and I are working on is giving our 712 content teachers, especially those we kind of consider the single teachers where, for example, ESL, he only has one ESL teacher. So there's not, within his building, he doesn't have a PLC for his ESL teacher. So it gives some vertical conversations and PLC opportunities for our 712 teachers, having the professional development go all day and on the same day. And then in this model, we're also proposing, and this is something the high school already started, that first day of school being an orientation day. And so the middle school is also proposing to do the same. I think, Spence, you did that last year with your high school students, ninth graders coming in, and I think, I don't want to speak too much to that, but what we're proposing at the middle school is using August 23rd as an orientation day for all of our 6th grade students, as well as any new 7th and 8th grade student to our building. I think we just have a lot of room to improve in transitioning our students over to the middle school. It's a scary time for students. It's a time filled of anxiety for our parents. And so that's just one way to continue to bridge that partnership with our students and families between the school and them. So Spence is going to talk a little bit about what that current structure looks like.
Yeah, and I think before I get into the current structure, just to add to that, with the situation of students constantly being in our building, it's definitely we want to be welcoming. If they're there, we're going to let them in. But it does affect the professional development, and you might think to yourself, well, then move it to a late start or a late early dismissal. The elementary is not suggesting that they change their schedule, but for secondary, especially at the high school level, it would be the same problem of watching over 200 plus kids before their extracurricular activity started. And so we couldn't clear the building to focus in on what we needed to focus on, and we'd still have that breaking point of staff who are coaches leaving at their appointed time. And so that is something that we definitely want to discuss. And we also, we want to make sure like our singletons, our ELLs, but we want to make sure that we have an opportunity for our English teachers to talk, social studies. We have a lot of things vertically that we have to do better. And this allows that. And as you can see, in our current structure, we have 37 Wednesday morning PDs, okay, and it just breaks that down. Within our new proposal, we would have 5 full days and 3 early dismissals. Our 3 early dismissals, the 2 will be placed in September, and the reason why we want them in September is there's a lot of nuts and bolts that just need to get covered, and so we feel that we need, as a staff, 2 days to be able to say, okay, we got off to a great start, we didn't get off to a great start, this is what we have to tweak. There's all those little things that come up that you need in September. And then the other early dismissal would be in December. We didn't feel we needed a full day because we have a lot of breaks already built in with Thanksgiving and winter break there, that having another full day didn't seem like something that was beneficial. The positive, if you do that and do the math, we're actually gaining back academic time. So we'll have more time, we feel, to work with our staffs together on PD, and then we'll also have more academic time because we get more academic time because the day starts the same every day. So at that, I can't even read that, Jonas, my eyes are getting bad. There's 640 minutes, I think, for you and 610 for the high school, or reversed.
Reverse. So we would gain 640 minutes of academic instructional time back at the high school in 610 with this proposed model.
The other thing that, as Jonas brought up on the 23rd, we did have that this year and brought the entire student body in the afternoon to start the day. But we felt we didn't have enough time with our freshmen, so we'll probably go to an early dismissal, like a 1:15 dismissal time, because we just didn't have it. We felt tours could be longer. We had some really great discussion with our ninth graders. We felt we needed it longer, and that's the adjustment we made with our staff for next year. So I wanted to address the first day of school, and then that second day of school, which would be that Monday coming back out of the weekend, everybody would be in first period, and away we go. So this is just set up. I know Jonas, I'm going to wait till the end because I want to talk about how this has an effect on the modified block that I've talked to you about, going to the new school and things of that nature. I want to be able to talk to you about that, but also I know Jonas has just some results to share of what this looks like, the results from staff and from parents. And
So feedback was a very essential component. And so we wanted to know how our parents felt about this proposal, our community, and then we also surveyed our individual staff members at each building. So on the first slide, what you'll see is that this was what was sent out through Eric to our community. And so we had 756 individuals who responded. And what you see here is that there's not really a preference one way or the other from the community members who responded to the survey. So we had about 50.5% say that they would prefer the new model that we are proposing, having the 5 full days and the 3 hybrid. And we had 49.5% that said let's remain the same with the current schedule of having weekly Wednesday professional development. So we're not really seeing a push one way or the other. Where you will see some significant differences is how our staff responded. So I'll talk about the middle school survey. As you can see, 75% of the staff that responded preferred the new proposal, which is moving to the full day and 3 partial day professional development. We have 73 staff members, certified teachers in our building, and 56 responded to the survey. So we had a good response rate there. We did give them an opportunity to leave comments, and the majority of the staff said that they're not in the mindset or the frame to be in professional development on Wednesday mornings. They're thinking about the students that are walking in the door and how they're going to prepare for instruction. And so they do believe that this model lends itself better to some real learning and in-depth conversations. They get it. Like, we're making momentum and then boom, we have to end it because people are coming. There were some cons to this approach, and I wanted to be open with you all and share with what the staff was sharing for those who opposed it. One of it is just not having that frequent contact, that weekly contact with the whole staff. So there was concerns about whether or not, that would do anything to further, not make it as a cohesive team. So that was probably the one thing that emerged from those who preferred to keep the current model. The other one that came up a few times about moving to a full day model would be that the teachers didn't feel like having a full day, the stamina to stay with a full day professional development. I would push back on that thinking a little bit and say, hey, our students are doing that 180 days a year. So if they can do it, and we're just asking for one time a month, then we should be able to do it as well. The high school, Spence can talk to that.
So we had 72 responses. We have 95 staff, so again, quite a good return on the survey. As you can see, overwhelmingly, 79% of our staff were in favor of the change. They also know, and we have been talking about with the staff, of going to a modified block. With that, we know that we need to use Wednesday in order to do that. So for us, what it would look like at the high school would be you'd start Monday and you would have periods 1 through 8. Then on Tuesday, you would start your modified block and you'd have your 1 through 4 period. Then Wednesday, 5 through 8. And then Thursday and Friday, you'd go back to 1 through 8. Our teachers are really excited about that opportunity to have that block of time, that 90 minutes. It's going to allow us to do a lot of things, get students out and more active, and as we go towards more of a project-based model and a lot of things that we're doing at the high school. It allows those times to take field trips, things of that nature, not cut into anybody else's academic time. The other so with this schedule of 2 weeks, so that goes to 90 minutes plus 10 minutes in between classes. We allow kids to take a little bit longer break in between classes, stay focused. Talking to our staff, they're excited about that. And the amazing thing is it's really resonated with the whole staff. Usually you have somebody like the marching band is not happy with this. Well, but this gives them 90 minutes that they can go out and be out on the field and not have to come back. Right now our class times are 42 minutes, so imagine trying to get 180 kids out. They have that block of time, and it's not every other day, it's just once a week. And the thing that's also key for us is, it's kind of a joke that in bus schedules kind of change or decide what we do as far as schedules for school. Well, what our schedule, 8-period day, allows some inequities to happen within the day. And what I mean by that is, right now in science, you have science full days, 5 days a week. And then one day you have an extended block so they can get labs in. So that's just one day. And so what happens is that starts to shift, and you shift your schedule. So the kids in band have to be in advanced chemistry, and all of a sudden it starts tracking kids through. Now with this situation, we will not have to have that extra, so we can free up our schedule to make sure that kids aren't following kids around at the high school and in the same classes. We've been able to do that effectively this spring with our choices in our electives that we've done in 12th grade English, which have been fantastic, but this allows us to kids to be able to bounce back in classes and not get caught into a rut where they follow students just because they happen to take math and this chemistry, and then that drives this. It allows us to pretty much have the kids pick a schedule and go with it, make scheduling a lot easier for us. So that's why one of the reasons we're really excited for the opportunity with the modified block and to have that within the week. And so the proposal that Jonas and I are bringing in front of you, just so that you would know that those full days would be on a Monday. So obviously it's not, PD-wise, teachers will come back fresh, they'll be ready to go. You don't want to do the PD day on a Friday. There'll probably be a lot of sick days calling in after a long week. We want them to come in fresh. It's easy for us to plan and then move forward throughout the week. Also, from a high school standpoint, you don't want to have kids off on those Fridays for a long day and then come to extracurricular activities that allows them the flow of the day. Works a lot better on Fridays. Monday is our least day as far as academic or extracurriculars at the end of the day.
And I'm being facetious, but I don't think we have snow days on Mondays. So, we've canceled a few professional developments that happen on Wednesday. But with that being said, what questions do you have for us?
Thank you for the work here. I appreciate it. When would the 5 full days would be on Monday. When would the 3 partial days be?
So there would be 2 in September and 1 in December.
Do you know what? But you don't know, like Would they all be on Mondays, or
Say that one more time.
were they, the partial days, like what day?
I
Like
believe
Monday,
it's
Tuesday?
Thursday, but
Thursdays.
it's attached on that calendar that was part of the board agenda packet. I don't have it in front. I apologize.
Looks like
But I
September 12th and 26th are
Which are-
two of the early dismissal days.
Which is a Thursday.
I couldn't tell with the rubric and the lines and the circles. Like,
Yeah.
what is this?
So I
Okay.
believe the 2-hour early releases are on Thursdays, and then the full day would be on Mondays.
So then, for the partial days, I guess what I was thinking as you were talking, and I think you touched on it a little bit, is how this would impact the busing schedule, if at all.
So it would be an early release, so it would be 1:15 p.m., just like if we were to call out for, I believe, is it the same as the snow?
Same schedule we use for Thanksgiving break, right before winter break. We use it at the end of the school year as well. We get out at 1:15. I think the middle school actually gets out at 1:30, so we just fall back to that schedule.
Okay.
Would you just cancel middle school activities in the evening when you have the early outs?
So, no.
Oh, you wouldn't?
Is the
Okay.
short answer, no. We would have to work with our families to communicate that in advance, to let them know about that. September is a busy month for activities at the middle school, so that is one barrier that we have to work through. We wanted it to be consistent between the two buildings. Our students, at least at the middle school level, they are dependent on parent transportation, whereas at the high school, I think they probably are, most of them are driving.
We'll still have a plan in place to supervise those students for those 2 hours, and whether that has to be administration or however we see it, we can break that apart. But on those 3 days that we're going to get out early, we've got to supervise we can't expect them to go home and come back.
Okay.
And we can get creative with that with study tables and some things of that nature. And considering it's only 3 times out of the year, I'm not as concerned in making that work as if we were trying to sell this for every Wednesday. That would be a train wreck waiting to happen.
Yeah, so
We'll be flexible.
I'm supportive of the concept. My biggest concern was parents and how, and really more at the elementary level, if this were to go to that space, which I know you're not suggesting, how that impacts daycare. But with middle school, high schoolers, I think it's probably they're home alone anyway. So my only other question was, as far as the orientation that you talk about, how does that impact our days or hours specifically for education for our kids? Is that part of the total number, or is that like a separate piece?
I have Amy checking into that. I actually sent her a message to double check that now that the decision was made. I'm not sure in terms of percent of students, if we count it for a day, if we have a certain percent of students. So we'll look into that. We're still over by a lot on our instructional hours, but that is something that I sent her a message to check out.
The other thing with this and change, we just added 640 and 610 more minutes to our schedule, so that'll easily take care of any.
Sure.
So to that, I get that we need to have the professional development. I am a little worried about the students losing out on that late morning, just because I've been talking to a lot of like freshmen, the parents, they stay up till midnight or 1 o'clock doing homework, or 11. So that's the piece that I'm worried about, and now we're also adding more hours. And I was wondering, at one point, I was wondering if we could do like, I don't know, some sort of recess for middle school or something, because it's like we're adding more minutes to their more instructional time. So that I'm supportive of the professional development. I'm just worried about the students that kind of bank on those extra hours in the morning.
I think when you look at the calendar, one of the things that it breaks out quite nicely as far as breaks, as far as having a 4-day week, and everybody looks forward to that 4-day week. So the crazy thing is that on those Wednesdays, we have more students that come in tardy and late than we do when we just keep the schedule consistent, because they will think, oh, I'm going to stay up late, and we'd all like to think they're studying, but they might be watching, what have you on TV and stay up late, which then puts their cycle behind. That I think that it'd be more important to stay consistent within a consistent schedule. Our kids really need, I think really thrive off of that when we try not to mess things up. You really see that around breaks because they know that the changes, and it hasn't been good lately with the weather. And so I think it's a positive, but I think it's worth looking at, taking data, seeing how things go next year. I think it's worth the try because I think that we can get so much more out of PD. Plus, academically, I'm excited about being able to try the modified block at the high school because I think you'll really see a change in what we're trying to do. Learning-wise, I think you'll see a jump in what we're able to do with that longer block of time, one time per week.
I appreciate the survey you sent out to identify, get some community feedback and on that. Has there been what kind of communication or information are you sharing with students on the proposed modified block schedule for next year?
We have not. We're in the process of getting ready to start our scheduling and so forth in March, and so that's when there was no reason to roll it out if I was looking at a bunch of no's. So would not go as far as the students until we know that here's the situation so that they're prepared for that. But our students they really enjoy and have that ability to get out, that I know this is something that'll be grasped. We'll spend the rest of our PD time, once that this is okay with the board, on preparing to teach that 90 minutes because that's 2 days now. That's not just 1 day, so you can't just teach for, we don't want to. You can't just lecture for 45 minutes and sit there for 45 minutes. We don't want that anyway, but you understand what I'm meaning. So we have to get prepared for that, but we will share that with our students as we're going to do scheduling a little bit different this year. We're going to actually have scheduling conferences with students, so we'll be able to share what we're offering, how we're offering it, and then they'll be able to decide the classes that they want to take.
Okay. I appreciate the reasonings, the reasons behind these decisions, and it seems like a very thoughtful approach has been taken by the two of you and the staff on trying to think through the various impacts. So thank you for your work on it.
You had mentioned one of the concerns was the less frequent engagement that the teachers would have. Have you thought of ways to handle that, or maybe to still have some more frequent engagement, or what are your thoughts there?
So not necessarily in a formal get together. I mean, there's ways that we want to build community within our staff and in our schools, but in terms of time frame, or time within the school hours, no. Not at least at the middle school, maybe.
Yeah, I'm a little bit farther ahead. Obviously, I don't know why Jonas isn't on this, but we've gotten into a situation this year, or in past years, that we've tried to have planning for the entire English department for 8th period. That hasn't been as effective as we want it to be, and so what we'll be looking at is those key pieces of those teachers that teach 11th grade English will have planning together, but it won't be the entire group. So they'll still have that contact to work on their PLCs and get better. It just won't be a whole group. And if we're constantly having a whole group, I'm not modeling the type of instruction that I want to see happen in the classroom if I'm constantly getting teachers together and lecture at them. So we want to be able to make sure that PD is thought through, so we have group work. We're modeling in our PD what we want to see in the classroom.
Can I go back? So our current structure allows for teachers to gather together in their teams. So we do have a team structure at the middle school. So that is still in place. So they will, but maybe not necessarily within different grade levels. And so I think that was where the concern was stemming from, is that 8th grade teachers don't have an opportunity to visit or talk to 6th grade teachers. But I would tell you that in our large group professional development, there's not a lot of that opportunity anyways. We have an hour, and so we utilize every single minute of that. And so to get 72 teachers or 73 teachers to kind of quickly, just the size, the sheer size of that doesn't allow for that. There's some things that we're thinking about. Right now, the middle school has begun the discussions and have actually have a master schedule subcommittee already formed, and I think they are, today would be meeting number 3 of that subcommittee. I'm just not prepared to talk about that right now, but we'll bring it to the board at a later date. But I think it will also address one of the questions that Director Colton asked about in regards to homework. So I don't think it's any secret that having 9 periods a day in the middle school is not working. So we are looking at ways to reduce the number of periods we have in a day, which would then allow for more time with each instructor, which will hopefully address and shift the way we utilize homework in its current state, and doing more of that practice work within the class time. So I think those things will probably work itself out, but I don't have a final product in front of me right now to talk to you about, but I think in the near future we can get that to you in a discussion format.
Thank you.
I have a few comments. One, I like the changes proposed for professional development and in relation to how it's going to impact the calendar. I think those are all positive steps because we're seeing, other districts that have actually done that. They're going away from the early releases or late starts to actually give students more time in school. And I think that's a very positive thing. And actually the way that you did it in such a way, it really addresses those orientation days, because I know I heard wonderful things from not only students, parents, but teachers too, about the fact that that orientation at the high school was very successful, the way that it was organized last year. So, and I think you're going to see great benefits at the middle school next year, utilizing a similar model with that. And with the changes that you proposed, the hours are easily, you more than make up for them. So that's not going to be a problem at all. I do have some concerns, thoughts regarding the block, going to the modified block. And I don't really have a specific concern or question, but as you said you're still kind of putting the pieces together. Because, I do know that a number of high schools, or just schools in general across the, in the Midwest and around the country, who have gone to modified, block scheduling for a period of time are now going back to a traditional schedule, primarily for the purpose of that teacher is seeing that student every day, as opposed to, in some instances, only seeing them twice a week. So how have you been working through that issue?
We've been talking and working with that as our staff since October 5th on our first district day. And that's why I'm proposing a modified, not an AB block. I would completely agree with you. I would never want to do that. First, it takes more staffing to get that accomplished. And the second thing, you're exactly right. What we are taking, instead of having 5 full days, now we'll have 4 days of contact and only 1 not.
Okay.
So, and then without that 1 is at 90 minutes, and like I said, that's why we wanted to make sure that we always hit it on that Tuesday. That's why Wednesday was key, because
Okay.
the Fridays and the Mondays, that's when you start missing things, and we've also working on a plan to have PE look different, so that our kids that are in extracurricular activities that are been leaving school early, we can have them in PE at the end of the day, so that they're not missing math classes and things of that nature. The modified block takes away that science in the PEs that make a high schooler schedule a puzzle that doesn't allow them to see all the students in 10th grade. It really locks them in, and that's not good for what we want to do as a school district.
Okay, that's great. And that's great to hear, because that's just, as people hear block, as parents, really, that's what I'm talking about. As they hear the block, that just, certain things come to their mind, and they're thinking, oh, then that, especially like particular subjects like math, they're like, oh, my son really needs to see the math teacher every day. And that's what came to mind. So as you go forward with this, one thing I think you and, we as a board, we need to give you the resources to make sure that all of that's being communicated clearly before they start signing up for classes for next year.
I think the other thing is that on the day that they do not have class, their teacher will be free, so they'll be able to, it's like math, they'll be able to, we're working on a flex time that adds to our plus, so they'll be able to get to their teachers for tutoring help and things of that nature. So we're real excited. So as we plan this all out and you get to see it happen, it's pretty neat.
Speaking of that, are you going to be able to hold on to the plus period in the schedule somewhere?
We'll have the plus period three times a week. The only 2 days we will not have it will be on the block days.
Well, that's great to hear, because I've continued to hear very positive feedback regarding the plus period.
Yep.
I appreciate all that you've thought out with this. You've answered everybody's questions so well, and it tells me that you've really, really thought about every angle of the whole thing. So thank you. That was really good.
Thank you.
I do have one more question. I was going to ask about the chart you showed with the community feedback. So I was one of the parents who was able to provide feedback, and if I recall correctly, there was a space for a comment. And so since it was so split, I'm wondering if you can give us a sense of what the community feedback on this particular issue was.
So if I can be honest with you, I only saw the responses for my building.
Okay.
The community responses went to, I don't want to put him on the spot, but Eric, so I'm not sure if he had a chance to review the responses. Yeah.
So they were split, obviously 50-50 as well, and there were some where a lot of it came down to parent scheduling, and some of it was some of the things that Jamette said as well, as far as I like my student to sleep in on those Wednesdays, but a lot of it, I like to schedule things on Wednesday, and then on the flip side is, oh, this is going to be great because now I can schedule things on those Mondays. So that's what a lot of the feedback was.
Thank you.
I think too that what I like as we work through this is hopefully we work through this. It'll also give our students that opportunity that they can schedule work those days. Those students that are working, they'll be able to work longer hours, which I knew when I was a high school kid, I would appreciate that. So it's going to be one of those things that it's new. We've tried to work out. We'll continue to try to work out all the bumps, but we'll be better in this year 2 than we'll be in year 1.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much to the two of you for bringing this information to the board. And the calendar that was attached as the exhibit D1, that will come back as an action item at our next meeting. So we're clear on that. Thank you again for that information, Principal Evans and Michael. And do we have any comments from the public on?
Actually, before we go on to public comments, real quick, question regarding calendar. I did have and this is more a district question more than what they were talking about. On the calendar, there was, and I understood how or why the, let me just pull it up here real quick, why the Christmas, or winter, I should say, break is basically a full 2 weeks, which I'm sure a lot of parents will appreciate. And considering ISU is our biggest employer here and customer with their children, that really does work out very well. But I noticed for the spring break period that there was the 13th, and I just want to clarify, maybe I'm wrong in reading the calendar, but the 13th, the Friday before the full week, is that all grades do not have school? And then on the 12th, it's just K4 through 8? Is that correct?
What was that? The 12th. The 12th and 13th are conferences,
Okay,
The
but
12th
it
is the conference
says,
and the 13th is the
the
teacher.
day that teachers get.
on the right, so it says, but March 13th, it says no classes district-wide.
Right, that's the day staff stays late throughout the week, so that's
So that was
the-
intended to...
Yes.
Because, again, that, I just want to make sure and clarify that, again, that I think that's going to be appreciated by
And I don't
parents.
think that changed from when you all, a year ago,
Probably not.
approved this. That was
Probably
on
not, but
there,
it
yeah.
adds that extra day to parents' travel
Right.
arrangements for spring
Definitely.
break, and it gives them some flexibility.
That's a good point.
Yeah, so that's helpful. I just want to clarify those.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's that way, I believe, this year, that we have the Thursday, Friday is the conference, and then the teacher comp day, the Friday right before spring break. So it's a similar setup, so. Any comments from the public? Seeing none, we will go ahead and go on to the next. Oh, you don't, come on, so come on up, say your name and what school you're at, because I'm guessing you're a student, and then give us your comment, please. Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Carissa Adams. I go to the high school. I'm a senior this year. And I was just kind of like listening to what Spence had to say. I think that honestly a block schedule would be really good for Ames High, because I know out of like my past 4 years at Ames High, I'd kind of been wishing that we had that, because I think it would be like a lot easier to like schedule classes and stuff that like either only meet once a week or we meet for double periods once a week. I think that would be really easy to like help schedule in like just on the block days. But also I kind of liked what he said about like not having Wednesday mornings late start, because it is really nice to sleep in, but I know it kind of splits my week up into two halves of like, okay, well, I gotta get stuff done, but then Tuesday night I stay up really late, and then I wake up and it's like already time to go to school, and I always have a mindset of, oh, I'll just wake up early and do my homework Wednesday morning, but it never happens because I just sleep in. So I think that'd be really nice. Like if, I don't know if he was proposing like an early out or anything on that day, but like, honestly, I don't think I would mind it coming from a student who like actually goes to the school. But yeah, I just wanted to put that out there.
Great, thank you. We appreciate you sharing some feedback with us. Any other comments from the public? All right, now we'll go ahead and go on to snow makeup days.
So for our snow makeup days, as you saw in your packet, I am recommending that, and this recommendation comes from the administrative team, that we do not have our students make up the 4 days that we've missed, and we're only going to miss 4 days, by the way, because we are so many hours over the state requirement for 1080. So I did give you the breakdown earlier, I think it was last month, I think I provided the breakdown by each school, but just on an average, we're about 60 hours over. So we would have the students' last day remain May 31st, and our teachers, our staff would be done June 7th, with our new staff, our new teachers being done June 10th.
Any questions, comments?
I'll just make the comment that winter's not over yet.
I know this.
And we, you know,
Thank you for reminding me.
we can still have
This is
snow
where we
days
are
in
as
March,
of
or
February 11th.
April. So,
Have you looked
but-
outside?
Yeah, no, I haven't looked.
Yeah, but no, you know, like you said, we're looking at the hours. We've got a lot of leeway, and you said 60-something hours in the various
Average,
grades
yeah.
on the average. So we're good for now. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? And just to be clear with the board, this is just really to serve as an update tonight. This will not come back as an action item. So just reinforcing that as of February 11th, those days that you have missed thus far, students, you will not make up, and we will proceed as Mother Nature provides us more opportunities for it. So
I think they're thanking me.
I think they are. We have smiles in the audience. Any comments from the audience? Seeing none, we will go ahead and move on to the next item, policies for discussion. Directors Spearbaum and Bankin.
The summary on the first page talks about these policies. Most of these policies, again, were similar to the previous ones, where there are additional policies we're adding as part of this pass-through. And most of that, well, they all came from the administration as needed policies or policies that didn't have any significant pushback or issues.
Any questions for the policy committee?
Yes. Regarding number 703.1, budget planning, the language in there, was that from our previous existing policy, or did we pull that out of the IASB suggested policy?
That's a new policy.
Sorry.
That's a new one? So it was pulled out of the IASB suggested?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'd like us to think about and consider in the third paragraph, where it states that the chief financial officer to prepare the budget for review by the board prior to April 15th, deadline each year. I'd like to, somewhere in that, and I don't have the language exactly, I can come up with something, but I'd like something that stipulates that that draft budget or budget should actually be to the board by March 15th, giving the board 30 days to review it prior to voting on it on the 15th, because the 15th is when we have to have it completed. And then that also would work out with the 10-day notice requirements and such that are required by state law provisions. So that's the only suggested change that I would make to that, is to have it specifically say that by March 15th, the CFO has a, and it could be a draft budget even, but we should have the budget to the board for review those 30 days prior to us having to actually act on it.
So perhaps language, something like, it is the responsibility of the chief financial officer to prepare the budget for review by the board prior to March 15th to be prepared for the April 15th deadline. Is that what you're suggesting, something to that?
Or we
Something
could
like that.
say, it is the responsibility of the chief financial officer to prepare a draft budget for review by the board prior to.
You might not need the draft word.
I just want to make sure,
yeah.
I want to talk to Chris and make sure that that meets her timeline, just to make, and I'm sure it does.
Yeah, the draft would be okay, because technically, no matter, nothing's final until we vote on it on the 15th, and we can always amend it. So I don't know if it's necessary to have the term draft in there.
Probably not.
But yeah.
Okay.
There's something like that, just so it indicates that, March 15th is something that the CFO can focus on, have things ready for the board to review, and the board then has adequate time to review it, and also the public, and interact with the public in those 30 days for any input prior to action. And that, again, the April 15th is required by state law. That's not something we can move around on. That's something that's by statute.
My only comment, and I'd be curious what Chris has to say, is the certified budget, in my experience, hasn't been very confrontational or hasn't been a lot of discussion around. It's more about the superintendent's budget. And so I don't understand that. I've never really fully understand the dynamics between the superintendent's budget and the certified budget, because there's a lot more talk around what comes from that office. So I think it's a great suggestion, but just understanding what implications, like you're suggesting, from Chris would be helpful.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions from the board? Any comments from the public? Seeing none, we will go ahead and move on to the next item, board committee updates. Are there any things that anyone would like to call our attention to?
I'd like to just do a real quick update on the Equity Committee. So we have been trying to get our group back together again to have a debrief. The way the committee is structured, there are a variety of community partners, teachers, administrators, members of the group, and so they cycle off. And so we've been trying to get the whole group together again to get a debrief from the members who will be cycling off. To kind of give us feedback on the equity report process, on their thoughts about where the committee should move forward, and just kind of, have that closing time with them. And schedules have been it's been really hard to get 11 people in the same room in the middle of the busy semester. So we are still working on that, but that's where the process is, and so that's why we haven't met. I think the last meeting was in December, I think, but we are trying to get everyone together, and I think Director Colton and I agreed that if we couldn't find a time, we would move towards getting online feedback and then continue with the group that we have here about how we keep moving. So,
Thanks for that update.
Just
Any
want to
other-
give an update. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Teaching and Learning Committee, we're meeting this Wednesday, February 13 at 2 p.m. at Conference Room A.
Any other comments?
I'd like to make a comment to bring us up to date regarding our Iowa Association of School Boards legislative priorities. A lot of actions going on today and tomorrow. Actually, I didn't hear from the floor of the House whether they actually took up the supplemental state aid debate, but it was on possible debate today. But it's also eligible for Senate debate tomorrow. So those two bills are up. So please contact your legislators, and that's why I'm bringing this up to tell those at home that might be watching. Please let our local House and state senators know that we could use more funding. That's what's been proposed in the committee so far. What's been proposed is somewhere between 2 and 2.3%, and I know that some legislators are going to be offering amendments to bring that closer to 3, which would be great. But we'll see where that goes. The other issue that's going to be, we haven't seen what's been scheduled, but the Superintendent Risner and I were down at the state capitol. Was it last Tuesday already?
Yep.
All right. Of course, the Save Penny Sales Tax initiative is moving forward. Again, please talk to your state representatives and regarding that. We want to see that passed. That's going to affect not only our current building projects here in the district, but definitely future ones in the next several decades. So we want to push hard for that. But those are the two that I just wanted to point out today. And again, they're talking about the supplemental state aid for our school districts, and really, for the most part, not for the most part, that is what makes a huge difference of what our school district can do for our students. When it's issues of the various block scheduling that we're talking about and additional staff, and that's where it can really make a difference. So the more that we can get from that supplemental state aid and the allowable growth that they allow with that really makes a huge difference.
Thank you. Any comments from the public on our board committee updates? Seeing none, we will move on. We did not have anyone sign up for our public forum this evening, so I will go ahead and move on to consent items and entertain a motion.
Move the consent agenda.
Second.
Moved by Rosser, seconded by Colton. Superintendent Reisner.
Minutes from the meetings held January 23rd and 29th. Personnel report. Gifts to the district, including Anonymous, Peter Godlewski, Ames Home Builders Association, North Minster Presbyterian Church, Jeff and Janice Breitman, Sue Ellen and William Burke, Michaela Moore, and Michelle Vetter. Open enrollment requests, contracts and agreements, Life Touch agreements.
All those in favor of approving consent items indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Items from the board. Seeing none, items from the superintendent.
Just an update, we've talked about our MTSS model, and that's our multi-tiered system of support. We've, I think as a board, we've talked about that up here as well, but just the importance of having that model in place as we move forward. And so Clay Cook is going to be helping us through this process. He'll be here February 13th, which is Wednesday. You are welcome as a board to come to either session. Darcy will send you those, the times that he will be presenting, but we'll have our primary staff first, no, our secondary staff first and our primary staff in the afternoon, and we will include all of our transportation, our Chartwell people, and really all district office people to give that foundational kind of that explanation on what MTSS is all about and why we're doing it. And then just a quick update, we talked about having a common behavior program as well, so behavior expectations, and we are going to be doing a PBIS training with Heartland AEA. That'll begin in February, and then it will continue April, May, and June, and that will be for all of our staff, preschool through, I think preschool is doing it, preschool through 8th grade. And again, you guys are welcome to come to any of those trainings as well. That'd be great. Thanks, Darcy.
Is that something that we'll eventually have in policy? I mean, I don't mean to bring stuff up, but I was just curious if it provides more weight that the board.
You know,
define
that's a
something.
great question. I think that it would be really good to have in the administrative rules, kind of what our process is, what PBIS is about, and what our process is.
Okay.
So that's a great comment on that.
Any other updates? Superintendent Reisner, is that the end of your updates?
That is, sorry.
Okay.
Yes, I was looking
Planning
at the-
calendar, sorry.
I was just looking at the planning calendar.
Yes, so planning calendar, because I know there is one that you want to mention here.
Yes, board work session, 4 o'clock on February 21st. That will be with OPN and Story to go over the design development. After that, there'll be a public forum at 6 p.m. on the 21st, so that the public can kind of see where we're at with the design of the building. And then board meeting will be on February 25th.
Okay, and we will get some information out, but we do really encourage the public to please come out February 21st at 6 p.m., a really exciting time for all of us in this community to get to the point of design development and to see the high school. So I will go ahead and entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Perez, seconded by Beerbaum. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Thank you.